want to give you a short sentence to start with. I want to give you a short sentence, and I'm not going to comment on it at all, not at all. Rather, I would like you to think about it and take it home with you. And I'll repeat it once or twice. You may comment on it if you wish, in the light of everything we've talked about up till now. Now think about this. It's tremendous. It's terrific. It'd be worth your while coming to all these meetings just to hear this one truth, this one fact. It contains that much, which is this. When you are at the mercy of everyone and everything and do not fight, you have won. When you're at the mercy of everyone and everything and do not fight, you have won. You can comment if you want. I will not reply, but you may comment if you wish. If not, we'll go on to other things. All right, who would be the first? You think about that. You take that home with you. Who will be the first to comment or ask a question who has not spoken much before in our meetings?
I would.
Right.
And I guess you know why. And being bashful, I probably wouldn't say it. If you're in business, a great part of the business, and I don't know how to say it anymore. That's all I can say.
I'm sorry I didn't follow that. Did I miss something? All right. Anyone else? Yes, we do.
If you cry, are you losing the possible energy you awaken?
Say it again, please, real loud, please.
If you cry, are you losing possible energy that could otherwise be used to awaken?
If you cry, you mean plain old physical crying, plus all the inner tears that go with it, are you losing possible energy that you could be using? Obviously, anything like that is just draining all our psychic system of something that we could be using otherwise for our gain. Now please, ladies, gentlemen, every time you cry, I mean physical tears, you're in a state of self-centeredness, of egotism, of vanity. And I will also tell you that when you cry, ladies and gentlemen, because you may not cry outwardly, but the same thing may be going on inside, you are loaded with violence. There is nothing profitable whatever in tears. How many of you are challenging this? When you weep for yourself and for no one else. No, just a minute. You watch your state when you cry, and don't you dare call it sympathy and love. Don't you dare. You see it for what it is, if you can take it, so that you cease being the actor and the actress in your own little stage performance, where you are so sorry for the dearly departed. How many, heaven's sakes, how many times did you fight with him or her? You find out who you're crying for. And don't you call egotism love and care and consideration and sympathy. Not if you were serious about this. If you want to lie, lie, but you're out. Yes, that's great energy that we could have saved for doing another thing. Maybe the shock comes, what is it, losing someone or something like that. And I am tempted to weep because now this person I depended on, I'm speaking of death, but there's many other things. I lose my position with a company or whatever. I lose my health. And there's also a good deal of shame in this because I had pretended that I was an individual, independent individual, relying on no one. This exposes my fraud, my fakery. I pretended that I was strong, able to stand alone, and this thing was taken away from me, and so I cry. I cry because I'm ashamed to see that I've been telling a lie all my life. I'm sure you know this is strong stuff, don't you? It can't be any other way. Strong stuff, you have no idea. No idea how easy it has been on you up till now. Who had their hand up, please? The lady first, please, and then the gentleman.
How does this apply to something that you feel is very moving and beautiful? Like there are times when maybe music or something that you feel is very beautiful brings tears.
We're not saying...
How does that apply to that?
We're not saying you shouldn't enjoy things in life. You should enjoy them. They're here to enjoy many things outside nature. However, will you do this, not just this lady, but everybody? The next time you get in a mood where you feel like weeping or getting emotional or getting self-dramatic, God help you. You watch your state and you will see that you are right in the center of this self-created drama. And boy, anyone who tries to push you off stage, you see how quickly your so-called lovely sentimentality turns to hatred. I'm not speaking too strongly. I'm not speaking strongly enough. I'm asking you to observe your state, your stage, your state, when you feel in a sentimental mood, because that often deceives us into thinking that we're being loving or caring affectionately for someone. Boy, don't you tell these things to people out there. They're hard enough on you. If you want to be attacked, just say these things in public. Of course, you wouldn't be foolish enough to do it anyway, because then you're throwing pearls before swine. That is, before those who don't want it. Watch your state. You see yourself in this condition and answer the question for yourself. You answer it for yourself. The gentleman, yes. Now, well.
Challenge is too strong a word. It was the only word. I had a question.
Yes, sure.
You said every time you cry. I don't question it every time I cry. Or most of the crying I've seen is of the character that you described. It was only on the basis of the spiritual statement that Christ wept over the city of Jerusalem. I don't think he was looking for himself. And I was simply questioning in terms of such a thing, how to interpret every time you cry. I would honestly bring that my tendency to cry or is not socially acceptable or male equivalent. But you described it very well. But I am a little bit hung up on the spiritual account of Christ.
Well, first of all, we weren't there. We don't know whether it was accurate, whether Christ cried or not. We know nothing about it. And let's not go on fifth-rate evidence, hearsay evidence. I will repeat, and you have to do this for yourself. You watch yourself the next time you're in a weeping mood and see what state you're in. And I will guarantee, if you can be as honest with yourself as you should be, you will, it depends on the particular type of thing behind it, but in many cases, you will see this other state that we talked about, a state of rage inside of you. Because crying is often a state of frustration. This is the way you, this particular person, that takes out your rage in crying. And don't tell me that you don't know that your husband or your wife or the other members of the group that you're with, they know you're crying, and you know very well that they know you're crying. 10 people in the room, one weeping person, who's the center of attention? And woe unto you if you go over and give false sympathy to such a person. Because this means that you are on the same level and you would expect the same thing for yourself. And you say you're going over and comforting him or her. You're doing nothing of the sort. You're contributing to their neurosis. Because you yourself don't see what is behind it. We're not here to be weaklings and to be cowards. We're here to try to be strong. Indeed, to be strong through seeing through all these things that sometimes masquerade as strength. See through it and drop it. Then you'll be strong because you'll have no opposition. You'll have nothing to cry over. A free mind has nothing to weep over. More comments, questions, either on that subject or on a new one? This is your opportunity to speak up if you haven't done so before. Yes, sir.
Mr. Howard, what would then be your, I don't want to say reaction because it's a reaction to someone else, what would be your action in a room where someone was doing such a thing, or where you were confronted with someone who was?
Who was weeping, you mean? So what's,
how would you?
Well, it's very simple. You would understand them, and you would not.
If you can't, but what I'm wondering then is, if you do not know why they are doing so, then how are you going to understand them where they are?
Well, you might find out if they fell with someone fell down and hurt their toe and they're weeping because of the momentary pain. That's one thing, of course. You might find out why they're weeping on the, for a surface information. But what I'm trying to say is, what happens to you when you? All right, may I ask you? What is your reaction, please? If you would tell us, when you see someone crying, would you tell us that, please? What do you do? Just you. Yes.
I think I do try to find out why they are.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm trying to find out is, from this standpoint of what you were saying, if I'm learning to be strong in my own self, then I'm trying to learn to rely upon my own self.
Okay. Okay.
But we are interrelated in the sense of the social system in which we live and which we work, and other people are involved in our lives one way or another, and we are oftentimes in positions or in circumstances where someone is right next to us doing such a thing as crime, and this is what I'm, from that point of view, how would you?
I will tell you what to do. All right, I will give you some help. You experiment. If you may run into this, you may not. But we're working on everything. The next time you're with someone who is crying, I don't say you bawl them out or say that's stupid. That would be wrong too, because you're even giving their neurosis more attention. You sit there quietly and watch how they behave toward you. Because I will tell you that they are expecting a certain behavior from you. Don't you know that they know they're on stage? A weeping person knows that he's on stage. And you had better not be so cruel as to encourage their sickness by doing the wrong thing. You sit there the next time and be a nice, pleasant human being who sits and listens to them if they want to talk. You sit and listen to them, and don't you agree with them that it's a cruel world who has persecuted her and all that, or him? because this is just what they want. And you're still part of the sickness by contributing to it. Why do you think you have to do anything at all as if you have anything to give anyway? As if you know what to say to them, because they can't hear anything you say. They are so blocked, so tied up in themselves. Now, suddenly make a switch in your thinking. Think of an angry person in the same way, because they're very closely connected. An angry person and a crying person are exactly the same underneath. It has simply expressed itself differently up here. You just sit there and listen to them and see how they might even stop crying when you refuse to encourage it. Now, if they have anything at all in them that's right, you would help them. It's not too likely. But you be right yourself regardless of how they are. And that's your only responsibility. That's only mine, to be right myself. I'm not responsible for you, nor you for me. That is enough on crying. All right, go ahead. One more comment, please.
I'm just wondering what right that I would have, whether I know what you're saying or not. I'm wondering what right I would have to judge what the other person might be going through and what they might need as a person.
You're not making any judgment at all. That is their problem, which they have to work out. Do you think that you're cold and hard when you let other people solve their problems? Do you have ideas that you can save them? You had better get over that idea, that you can save anyone. Have you saved yourself? You know what I mean by save, generally speaking. Have you saved yourself? Who on earth are you, or me, to go around saving the world when you're in such a mess? So when you sit there, you're not trying to save them. You're simply working according to these ideas that we're talking about. Watching, maybe you might even have a false guilt feeling. Watch that in yourself. Just work on it as you run into this, if you ever do. That's enough on weeping. Let's go on to another subject. Anyone else? All the energy left over is now yours for waking up. How many of you remember what was said at the very start? How many of you don't remember? Shall I repeat it for you? This is very important to you. When you are at the mercy of everyone and everything and do not fight, you have won. Who understands this? Timidly. Would you like to comment? Then, may we, gentlemen? Would you like to comment? If not, just say something.
It is my feeling that when you are so-called persecuted and you refuse to react to it and don't accept the fact that someone is trying to do this to you, then you are free of them and you are free of this situation and you are the winner because you have not engaged in battle and therefore you are the winner.
That is the essence of it, of course. I'm still not going to comment. Now, please. Did one of you gentlemen want to go on with that?
Well, I was just going to say that I felt that we are, when we find out that we are every day at the mercy of everything and everyone, and then we don't fight it, that's the day we want. And we are constantly in this situation.
If you're going to ever write anything down and take home with you, this is what you should take home with you tonight, or maybe get it from someone else. You ponder it. It doesn't make sense at first, but it makes perfect sense when you see, when you brought all these other things together that we've talked about. This is how, now listen to this. This should excite you. This is how, and the only way, you overcome the world. Christ said, I have overcome the world. This is how you overcome the world, in the very same way. Yes.
I'm having a bit difficult, I think it makes sense, in terms of control, which you use the word balance. Get a distinction that I need to either make or have obliterated. Take a concrete situation. A situation in which, let's say, a man has entered my home with a gun
Okay.
and is after my family.
Okay.
Now, I can see practical measures that a person would have to take to restrain him.
Okay.
Would it be right to say that in taking such practical measures, whatever was necessary to restrain him, would not be fighting in the sense that you...
No, that is not fighting at all.
Yes.
If a man comes in your house with a gun, you try to get the gun away from him and save yourself and the family.
Yeah.
Don't get our levels mixed up. Fine. No. Don't get off on that. You protect yourself rightly. Rightly.
This is where I wonder whether Nick was coming in and speaking of business when
As long as human...
practical things to deal with practical things to deal with the competitor who will lower price or
I know.
come out with better quality or something like that. That some people call fight. Is that right?
All these matters concerning your business, your personal life, your sex life, whatever it might be, will be no problem at all to you when you see the whole thing. Beautifully, Leland, we don't have to solve problems one by one. We wouldn't have enough time in 10 lifetimes to do so, would we? There's too many of them. When you burst the beautiful bubble, which was not beautiful at all, and break the illusions inside of it, the whole thing falls away. Every problem falls away. Because every problem was the me, the self that I was carrying around, that wanted to be the center of the stage when I cried, and wanted you to see how beautifully sentimental I was, and how much I loved him or her. Boy, I'll tell you, this sort of thing you're hearing is dynamite. Keep the dynamite to yourself. Don't give it out to other people, or you'll get blown up by them. Who else? This is your night to talk, you know.
It becomes very difficult for those of us in the so-called helping professions, whether it's the law or medicine or social work or the ministry, when people, clients, patients, customers, what have you, come in and they're looking for neat little manipulative answers. They want to know how to juggle their relationships. When you can see that isn't really the problem is something bigger.
Right.
This makes for a real conflict for those of us who have to work with these people. You don't tell them this kind of thing. They want to hear, should I well, it's a matrimonial situation, should I leave my husband or not? This kind of thing. When you realize that isn't the problem, that's only symptomatic of something
Right, of
all
course.
the more pervasive.
Of course.
And this makes for a great deal of difficulty when we work with these people.
Now, may I throw that at you very bluntly and very directly? Why does that make a problem to you?
Because I don't think that I can tell them what I really see.
Well, do you tell them that? Do you just say, I'm sorry, sir or madam, that is not in line with my talents or whatever you call it, profession?
I make an attempt, depending on the equipment they have, depending on whether I can handle it.
Then why do you feel guilty about it? Apparently, this is what you're saying. You feel
Yeah, I think
guilty.
so, yeah.
Why? I know why, but do you know why?
Because when they leave the office, I want them to say, gee, what a great guy, he fixed up my life for me. That was part of it.
Pleasing them.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll make more money. Maybe. I don't know. You have to answer it for yourself. I'm not saying so. Yeah, all right, that's part of it. You're going to have to go a long ways, if I may say so, to understand what I'm going to say, and it is a repetition of what was said before, but maybe I'll say it in a little different way. You see it. You have no responsibility whatever, in spite of what people tell you, to save the other person. Because you have nothing to give them until you have, I'll use the word save, you know what I'm talking about, until you have saved yourself. So what does two neurotic people have to give to each other except mutual neurosis? Why don't you drop all ideas about saving others and helping others, which will give you a shock, because now you have to drop some very lovely self-images of what a helpful, kindly, generous person you are, which you are not. You're conniving and you're scheming. You are exploiting them for your own benefit. Why don't you drop all ideas about saving anyone but yourself and live in the horrible, quote marks, selfishness of saving yourself first? Why don't you try that just to see what happens? Just to see if you can pass through this guilt that you feel, which is phony, because you're failing to live up to this beautiful image you have of being a minor savior of the world. Why don't you pass through it and get rid of the mess, this particular mess? And that will carry several others with it, by the way, the need to talk compulsively to people, to advise them, and so on. Save yourself, not the world. Then, when you are one with yourself, you will be able to help just one kind of person on earth and no one else. And that will be those who have reached the point where they want to really save themselves and no one else. This is a hard, just a minute, please. You may not be able to help your children whatsoever. You may not be able to help your wife or your husband or your elderly parents. And they are not your responsibility as much feeling as you may have toward them. When you have saved yourself, you have fulfilled your responsibility. Then, if and when anyone wants and needs your help, those who are ready, which will be very, very few, and I doubt very much it will be any of your own family, then you can give them, you can tell them, because you have gone through your own hell, and you can explain to them just what you did, how you yourself struggled for many years in the bog, and didn't know how to get out, and finally you struggled this way and that, and finally you found the way out. Then you will be of authentic help to them. Don't try to help sleeping people. They don't want your help. They don't even hear you in the first place. They don't want your advice, as you implied they want to hear what they want to hear, not what is right, what is best for them, what can be done for them. They want to be comforted. They want to hear that they are right and the other guy's a rascal. Why do you waste your time in things like this? You have no time to waste. Yes, miss?
Well, I was wondering if I'm hearing you correctly, or if I'm understanding correctly. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and are you saying that I should not try and guide her because I don't know myself?
No, I didn't say that. What would be the best guidance for your daughter to become a mature human being? What is the best possible thing you could give her? To be a mature person yourself, would it not be?
Yes.
Right? Okay, that answers the question.
But I am not all the way maybe to maturity, and I should stop trying to guide her.
Oh no, you just work on yourself and you guide your child as best you can. But you work at making yourself right, and there will be no questions as to how you should guide your child. And besides, may I add something, not speaking to this lady here, but to everyone. So somebody in your family, child, husband, or wife, turns out bad, turns out wrong. If you feel bad, obviously you would not have asked for it for them. They get in trouble of some kind. But if they do, may I ask you what you want out of it? Do you want to protect your image of being a good parent or a good brother or a good sister or whatever it might have been? Is that what you want? Or do you really care for this other human being enough so that you could have given him or her the only thing that could have saved or helped them, which is a mature and free mind of your own? I will tell you, and please listen to this, if you think you can compromise and lie, you're wasting your time here. This is hard stuff. Make up your mind that you're going to go all the way with this, because even when you react with maybe even a little resentment to what you are hearing, then you yourself are affirming the truth that is in you. But another part of you does not want to accept this truth. But this can be very good, because you can look at yourself and you say, I'm resisting or resenting what was said, but why do I even react to it at all? Because there's a part of you that knows, but another part that doesn't want it, so you're in conflict. This could be very helpful for you to see what you must do, which is to ally yourself with the part that is right, and do it every day, and go real hard into these things that we're talking about. The only thing you have to give to another person is your own understanding. Do you prefer that word instead of maturity? Your own free mind. If you have that, what are you going to give to a person? Then you'll be like the world. You will be like everyone else who thinks they're saving the world, and all they're doing is moving from one jungle to another. This is the way the world operates. One war ends, and they have all the peace committees and the beautiful speeches. 6 months later, another war breaks out. And then it ends, more speeches, and then another war. Think about your internal war and go to work on that. Again, to repeat, otherwise you will unconsciously and unknowingly be a part of the war out there, because your and my inner war is the cause of that big war out there. There's no other cause. Individual sleeping human beings kill each other. Why? Because they are individual sleeping human beings who have got together into this army and that army. You know this. I don't have to tell you this. Comment? Question? Yes.
It might be very helpful to those of us who are parents if you would elaborate on something you touched on today, or spoke, as a matter of fact, spoke in detail on this matter of opposites in raising children. And I believe, in my way of thinking, it has been my experience at least, that when we are disappointed with our children, it is because we have swung in the pendulum. We have expected and been proud when they achieve, and then there was this devastation when they failed to achieve, disappointed us.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And this would be very helpful, perhaps, for people with young children to understand more depth.
All right. If you are working on yourself, and you have other people in your life, children, and you have husbands and parents and so on, you're going to have certain attitudes toward them. If you are right, this is so simple. If you are right, how can you have a wrong attitude toward them, like using your child, expecting him to grow up to be give a good reflection on you as a good parent? Now you're in trouble. What if he doesn't? And he may not. And no child is ever going to live up to what the parent expects of him, because human beings just aren't that way. You must always throw your mind back on, what am I thinking toward this child? What am I trying to get from him for myself? Of course, if you really believe that you are a perfectly loving parent and really are concerned for your children, then you won't see all this. You will simply have a false love for your child, and you will help this child to grow up to be just as miserable as you have been all your life. You have to break the pattern for yourself if you really love your child. Don't you dare say that you love your child if you are going to go out to the market with your 8-year-old son and your 10-year-old daughter, and you go out to the supermarket, and the three of you meet Mrs. Jones there, and you talk very friendly with her because she goes to the same church, and you're real nice. And the little children watch Mama talking friendly and affable to Mrs. Jones. And then when you get in the house 10 minutes later and you make some sarcastic remark about Mrs. Jones to your husband, and your children are standing there, and they see what a hypocrite you are, and you, the next minute, you say, how much I love my children. Those of you who are parents here tonight, and those of you listening to this tape, what are you telling your children about life by the way you behave in front of them? What kind of a world are you teaching them to go out into? Into a world that they're going to have to fight to get their rights? Or are you going to tell them that there's a way out of this madness of fighting? What does the expression on your face tell your child? They're not as dumb as you think. They're watching you every second, and that's being recorded. And when they're 50 years old, they're going to be up to a point what you made your children. Society contributes its share, society as a whole. Go ahead, you ask yourself, you proud, loving parents, what you have taught your children up to this point. And you tell me whether you really love them or not. How do you behave at home? Are you angry? Do you weep in front of them so that they take on the habit of saying, when I don't know what to do with my problems, I'll sit down and cry and hope that someone will come over and comfort me? And you love your children? Who would volunteer to repeat this point made a couple times during the meeting, at the start especially? Anyone here remembered enough and would care to try to in your own words? It's quite important to you to remember. Anyone at all? Yes. Try, if you like. Sometimes it's all right to put it in your own words. It might have a little more meaning if you do paraphrase it a bit. Fine, fine, fine.
When everyone and everything is against us, and we do not fight, we have won.
Yeah. That's good. It's just a little rephrasing of it, but it's fine. When you are at the mercy of everyone and everything and do not fight, you have won. If you fight, you have lost, and you know it. Did I see a hand up, Rudy, or are we scratching it? Yes, ma'am.
Should we ever do something we do not want to do, try to please another person?
Would you repeat that, please?
Should we ever do something we do not want to do, try to please another person?
Give me an example, please, if you can think of one. What do you want out of pleasing them? You have to, of course, find an individual case to find out why you would please them. Not that it's wrong. Huh?
For them in turn to like me?
Yeah, if that is your motive, then it's all wrong. We're not talking about little common everyday courtesies. If you bring your wife extra sugar for her tea, that's a nice little friendly and nice little thing to do. But what is the motive behind most of our kindnesses? I think possibly this is what they're getting at. Because indeed, maybe, in back of your question, maybe, was the idea that we end up resenting the duty of being good, which we do indeed. It's a very burdensome thing to be compulsively good. For example, over the years, especially when I was younger, I was associated with religious people. And it was very clear to me, even in those young days, how they resented being a Christian, because it meant putting on all the masks, and it meant doing a lot of things like going out and picking kids up for Sunday school when they really didn't want to do it, but they had to do it because God said they had to do it. Few things are more burdensome, and we're hitting the mark back here somewhere. Few things are more burdensome than to have to be good. Can you imagine anything worse than compulsive goodness? Compulsive goodness always has a motive of self-gain behind it. Either the favor or appreciation of someone else, or the confirmation of the image that the individual has of being a good person, being a Christian. I don't know any people who are more egotistical or selfish than people who go out and save the world religiously or philosophically. They can hardly wait to tell you how many souls they've saved. And they haven't even saved themselves, of course, but they don't know this. This, in my, again, to repeat and get personal for a minute, was one of the things that became so very clear to me, the hypocrisy of people who call themselves religious or who call themselves Christians. Because after they preached the sermons or taught the Sunday school, I would, for example, be in their home. And I was quite astonished to see the difference between their behavior in the home and when they were preaching the sermon. And at first you don't get this, you don't understand it. You think this is normal behavior. And it takes a long, long time to be able to break through this. At least it does for most of us. Because then you have the guilt feeling that you're going against good Christian people, and maybe worse than that, you're going against God. So you have to go through a good deal of false guilt in this. Right? Comments? Questions? Yes.
When we're here, we can see a lot of things to work on, that those figures that will be going back and working alone, and we'll get back in the mode, and we're angry again, and, we don't have anyone around to give us stuff, we have to so kind of PTSD.
For once, you tell me, now you're going back there, you tell me and the rest of us what you're going to do. You've been here. We're going to have another meeting tomorrow. You tell us what you're going to do. For example, get an example. Can you pull out an example?
Well, Monday morning I'll get work in the store, and something maybe 5 minutes after I'm there can upset me so that I don't remember anything until I go home that night, really. Or at least if I remember it, I can't find enough force to actually do anything about it other than
So you're going to catch it at the moment it happens instead of let it flood over you and then carry you throughout that whole day. You know how it is, maybe in yourself and maybe in other people, how early in the morning perhaps some adverse thing happens, and that paints your whole day the color, the dark color it is. Simply means that you're asleep, that you're not working on yourself at all, and it means that you love being this way. This we're not going to stand for anymore. We're not going to take it anymore. That is, we're not going to take being taken over. So this is what you're going to do. Catch it at the moment so it doesn't catch you. I told you before, you can do much better than that. You can catch it, you can see it out the window wanting to come in the door and catch it before it comes in the door. Because you're that alert, you're that watchful of your mind. Whether you're maybe at the dinner table and something that comes up that might irritate you, and you catch it You can see it coming. One part of you is eating dinner, another part is very alert to everything, to the other person, listening to them talk maybe. Maybe you feel irritated. Irritating people are very valuable to you. You sit there and watch yourself perhaps being taken over by them and simply refusing it, which you can do. You don't have to take it at all. But if you get pleasure out of taking it, then you will sit there and take it. You waste a lot of energy.
I think I heard something else in the question I'd like to find out. It is a fact that someone can be aware of the work that I should be. Monday morning, something can happen that is extremely upsetting.
Okay.
Perhaps we can stand against the tendency to act out something, to react.
Okay.
But as you have said, Vernon, as we've gone along, once the slave driver has seen us stepping out of line, he's going to let us have it.
Cracks the whip, yeah.
Right. So maybe half an hour later, when there's a pause, and it gets to us again, maybe harder.
Yes.
Maybe there's something I can do to this guy, or
Yeah, sure. Oh, sure, sure.
and this goes on.
Yes.
Come nighttime,
Yeah.
we're alone,
You're right.
more alone,
Yeah.
and we're dealing with it. Keeps rising up to that, we wake up in the night. Now, what I was hearing was an inquiry for, is it not a fact that though it can be said, ultimately, we can only do it ourselves, deal.
Would you say that last sentence again, please?
Though you have made a strong point, I've forgotten exactly.
Okay.
What it is. Though it is true, ultimately, we can only achieve
All right, so far.
what I understand your point to ourselves. It is also true that we are able, as here, we are gathered in groups, responding, reacting, sharing, stepping out and gaining, I don't know whether to use the word insight, when having stepped out, we're helped to see what we've done. What I say, what I heard was an inquiry, really, or thought I heard was an inquiry about how does one so associate oneself with others so as to gain mutual assistance in this clean of these other, as clean as possible. You've spoken of the continuing group.
No. May I?
For being so long.
No, sir. Whatever my relationship is with myself, that will be my relationship with you, and with you, and with you. I have nothing else to work with but what I am, my level of being at the present moment. So try to be a nicer person to you, or to get along with you, or to cooperate with you has no meaning. I have nothing to do it with if I am on a very low level myself. So I have to think of it from this viewpoint for a moment. We have so many things going. My relationship with myself will extend itself to you, because it's all one single attitude, projection, and even emotion. Therefore, again, the only thing I can do to be on a better relationship with you and you is to straighten myself out. And however, I can use you very handily in the right way, usage not in sense of exploitation, but simply in relationship, for example, to see how easily I let you upset me. But I must work on myself, and as I do this, you may not change one bit toward me because you're not working on yourself, and you have to do this if you're going to change. But I'm going to change the way I am Therefore, I change everything toward you, the way I respond to you, the way I speak to you. I may even change so much that I do not want you to be in my life psychologically anymore. I may have to associate with you socially, like at work, but I'm not going to be gullible like I used to be and try to be one of the friendly gang who sits around at coffee during the lunch break, and everybody sits around and lies and talks politics and wastes their time. I'm not going to go to that table anymore because I can't afford to waste my energy with that. So psychologically, dear friends, you are out of my life. I'm going to go off in a corner and read a good book, or I may take a walk and see whether I walk fast or slow. If I walk fast, I'm going to walk slow so as to see the difference and get conscious, and vice versa. I'm going to do something different to wake myself up. So I change myself. My relationship toward everyone out there is going to undergo a vast change, a radical change, because I've changed in myself so radically. Now, what's the question? I have no more problem with you at all. What's my problem with you? I have no problem. Behave the way you want. Do what you want to do. I'm free. Not sarcastically, not that sort of thing. I simply am. Now I'm the best friend you ever had in your life, but you don't know it. I'm speaking. You don't know it because you can't recognize it. A man on the first floor can't recognize a man on the 8th floor. To recognize the man on the 8th floor, he has to come up to the 8th floor. Then they're both speaking on the same level and in real communication. All of us are here, as this gentleman implied, to work together, to share all these things, to help lift each other up. And the one way on earth that he can help her is to work on him. No other way. He can help her if he works real hard on him. No other way. And that's what we're doing here in this group, why we read these books and listen to tapes and come to lectures. And take these hard things which we don't understand and therefore reject. Because when we don't understand anything, we have the automatic tendency to reject it, or even dislike it, or to argue with it. And when you argue, you are in a negative state, therefore you are wrong. Period. If you argue, you know what I mean by argue. I'm not talking about a discussion. I'm talking about argument. You look at your state. You look at how angry you are. When you are angry, you are wrong, period, about anything. Now you know when you're wrong. Now I'll tell you when you're right, when you're not angry. What are you going to get angry at? Anger is self-righteous hypocrisy. And many other things. It means that you're very cruel because you want to hurt somebody. When you're angry, you have no conscience whatever. You want to hurt someone, don't you? You get pleasure out of making him or her cry? You get pleasure out of it, don't you? You feel like somebody. You're very cruel. You had better wake up. For your sake. Then you'll be decent to that other person that you get so much pleasure out of hurting. Having power and authority over them. I feel sorry for you if you love to have authority over people. If you love to be in a position where you can hurt them and do it by sly, subtle ways, not by hitting them with a hammer, but by looks and by gestures and by ignoring them, perhaps, whatever way you do it or I do it. We have a lot of work to do. Yes?
Would you visit, I'm not trying to be academic, really, but would you distinguish the anger of which you're now speaking from the wrath of which you spoke this afternoon? Again, I'm not trying to...
I understand. No, I understand your question. Yeah. here's what I said. We'll review it to make it clear. When your despair gets so great, your anxiety and your terror and your fear gets overwhelming, and the drink and the new sex partner every week and the pursuit for money and the new home and the new car have done nothing for you, and you want to maybe jump off the bridge, then you will, in this state, also have a good deal of anger and wrath in you. Follow this now. At the same time, if, and this is an awfully big if you have one little small thing right in you, just one little tiny thing, that even wants to find the answer, and you explode in wrath against your condition and have no shame at all about blowing up and seeing yourself as you really are, which is a very angry, hateful, wrathful, vicious human being, which you are, you will at the same time have a great emotional shock, but one small part of this, if that little, will be right. Now you begin the great, terrible search. Good Lord, what you're in for now. You go to the church and the books and the preachers and everything else. You're trying now. You're trying. You're not just trying to escape. You're really trying to find something. Then, gradually, as you, through all this hard work of separating the true from the false, which is very difficult because we don't know. How do I know what's right and wrong? Good Lord, they told me that killing was right, and they gave me a medal to prove it. You don't know. So eventually, this wrath, which was 99% or more in you, eventually falls away, but a small part of it was pure, good emotion of saying sincere, I want out. But it's all mixed up. Oh, it's terribly mixed up. So eventually, then as you begin to see these things that we're talking about, the anger falls away because you see how false the anger was too. That anger was trying to hang on to these falsehoods, but now you see the wrong use of anger. And as you understand it, it falls away. There's no one there to protect. I don't have to get angry at you. You insult me, where does it fall? There's no one there. So pretty soon, the one goes down and the other comes up by degrees, say 51 to 49 and so on. And so you keep working real hard as we're doing here. Pretty soon, finally, no wrath. What is there to be wrathful for? Not even self-righteous wrath, which is just another phony one, phony version of it. But you have to go through everything I've talked about. This terrible person that you really are, go through that stage, and then you will see the most incredible thing of all, that this terrible person, this horrible human being that you hated, in itself was a hoax, a falsehood, a myth that you yourself had built up. The whole thing falls away because this was your last refuge to be a horrible human being, and eventually that falls away. Now you're out. You're out of the trap. Gone. You're out. Yes?
This wrath is self-directed. This is not wrath of what the world has done to you.
Would you repeat that?
This wrath is directed at yourself.
Yes, all right. Put it that way. That's okay. Yeah, no, not out there. Now you're just one of them. One of the mad. No. The energy is directed toward waking yourself up instead of hating someone else. Yes, that's very good.
This is the distinction between the anger that you were last speaking of and the wrath.
Yeah, or call it rebellion. Use your own words. Rebellion, revolution, call it what you want. But you get the idea.
I do what I want.
Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
I've heard the word wrath very carefully described in the way you have now described it.
You'll never do it on the intellectual level. They will not knock down bars. They're too thick. You can't read books and quote people you've read and come to meeting and expect to get out. It won't work. Because you have to go through the emotional shock of seeing yourself as you really are. And intellectual knowledge will not do that. In fact, you can use it to keep yourself more asleep by saying you already know the answers. What do you mean out of prison? I'm out of prison. No point talking to people like this. They won't see it. We have to see that we're in prison. Going to the shocking state of seeing ourselves as we really are. And this is why, during the last hour or so, as a partial medicine, I have given you a few things which I think very well might have aroused some resentment in you. And if you took it rightly, you were just a little bit healthier than you were before. And if you take it home with you and work with you, you'll be a lot healthier than you were before. May I add something else? Maybe you don't do this, but just in case you do, don't listen to your friends. You know why, don't you? They're so mixed up and confused. I'm not talking about friends in the work. I'm talking about other people that you may have listened to in the past because you thought this man knew what he was talking about because he had a dynamic manner and all that. Or the woman who had a soft-spoken voice and she has a degree in religion or something like that. Don't listen to anybody except those who are working. And you can kind of sense those who are, those perhaps in the group here. Don't listen to people out there who seem to know because they do not know. And I think you suspect this or you wouldn't be here tonight because you're probably past that stage. But don't fall into it unconsciously. You know, I heard a man talking about 2 months ago, and of course I understood the whole thing, and he came out with some very profound thoughts. On the level of knowledge, he was right. It was very true, and yet this man was a lost soul. You could just see the way he talked, the expression on his face, what despair he was in. And yet he could sit there and give you a nice, perfect little sermon, and saying things that on the level of knowledge were right, were true. But he was not living the knowledge that he had. And yet you or I, if we're not wide awake, may think he knows something, and he doesn't. Now, apply this to yourself, to me, to see whether we're quoting knowledge and thinking that we're living it. Then we can see the contradictions and go through the shock and see that how we can turn knowledge into being, and then to be what we know. Once more, so that it's impressed on our minds, who will give me that quotation again? Anyone? If not, I'll give it myself. Rudy?
Thank you, Bruce. If we are at the mercy of everybody and everything, do not fight back. We have won.
Yes, fine. I'll just say it the same way. When you're at the mercy of everyone and everything and do not fight, you have won. Now you take that home with you and you ponder it. And if you want to comment on it tomorrow, fine. That will be enough for tonight.